Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man Score Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Creepy Diaries video for you guys. And this was titled 3 Disturbing True Airport Layover Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, everybody, here we go.
In 2018, I had a long layover at Heathrow Airport in London.
Okay.
My name is Emily, and I was on my way from New York to Paris for a long-awaited vacation. I was 28 at the time, traveling alone for the first time, and the excitement of the trip was mixed with a bit of anxiety about navigating the airport by myself. After passing through security, I had hours to kill before my connecting flight. I decided to find a quiet corner near my gate and settled in with a book. The terminal was busy, filled with the noise of announcements, chattering passengers, and the hum of rolling luggage.
This is one of the reasons why I would not like to fly, because it gets too hectic and sometimes people will get lost and don't know which gate they need to go. But also, you see on the news all the time that there's planes dropping out of the sky. No, thank you. I'll just take a train or a bus.
I found a seat by a large window overlooking the runway and began to read. As the hours passed, the terminal started to empty out. I glanced up from my book and noticed that only a couple was there at the gate. After a while, I heard a soft whisper, like a child's voice. I looked around but didn't see anyone nearby. The whispering continued, getting slightly louder. It sounded like a child was saying, "Come play with me." I stood up and walked around, trying to find the source, but the area was empty. A sense of dread washed over me. I decided to move closer to the busy part of the terminal, thinking I might be less scared there.
That'd be a good idea, because you never know if it was an adult trying to change their voice or somebody was playing a child's voice on a speaker on their phone or other device, maybe. Who knows? But thank God she did the right thing and got up and walked away. But now, if it was a real child saying come play with her, that would be a red flag for me, because I'll be wondering where the parents at. They're not supposed to leave their child behind at an airport terminal.
But as I walked, I noticed a small girl standing alone near a gate. She had an old tattered doll in her hands. I approached her, thinking she might be lost. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" I asked. She didn't respond, just stared at me with wide, unblinking eyes. Suddenly, she whispered again, "Come play with me." I backed away, feeling a deep sense of unease. I went to the airport staff to report the girl, but when we returned to the spot, she was gone. The staff said there were no reports of a missing child and assured me everything was fine. But for the rest of my layover, I couldn't shake the feeling that the whispering child was still somewhere in the airport, watching me. I decided to stay in a well-lit area with lots of people around. I found a seat near a family with young children, hoping their presence would make me feel safer. But every time I started to relax, I would hear that whisper again, "Come play with me," as if it was coming from right behind me. The other passengers seemed oblivious, carrying on with their conversations and activities. Desperate to stay awake and alert, I went to a coffee shop in the terminal. As I sipped my coffee, I saw the little girl again, reflected in the shop's glass window. She was standing behind me, her eyes empty and cold. I turned quickly, but there was no one there. I returned to the staff, more frantic this time. They suggested I try to get some rest in the airport's quiet room, a place designed for weary travelers to relax. I reluctantly agreed, hoping that maybe a short nap would clear my mind. The quiet room was dimly lit and sparsely populated. I found a comfortable chair and closed my eyes, trying to calm myself. But as soon as I started to drift off, I heard the whisper again, "Come play with me." I jolted awake to see the little girl standing at the entrance of the room, her doll dangling from one hand. She slowly walked towards me, her eyes locked onto mine. I was frozen in place, unable to move or scream. She stopped a few feet away and whispered once more, "Come play with me." Then she turned and walked through a wall, vanishing before my eyes.
Oh, no. At that point, I'll be like, okay, I'm losing it. I wouldn't bother telling this to the security staff, because they might think you're going insane. But I bet you it was probably a girl that probably died in a flight or in an accident at the airport. But that is creepy to encounter for sure. She just needs to like close her eyes and be like, this is all a dream, right? But man, if I was her, I'll be waiting for my flight to go and I'll be getting my stuff and going. Well, let's just see what happens next.
I fled the quiet room and spent the rest of my layover in the most crowded area I could find, surrounded by people but feeling utterly alone. The whispers continued, sometimes closer, sometimes further away. I couldn't escape them. When my flight was finally called, I practically ran to the gate, desperate to leave the haunted terminal behind. As I boarded the plane, I glanced back one last time and saw the girl standing by the gate, waving her doll at me. I hurried to my seat, eager to leave the nightmare behind. Throughout the flight, I couldn't stop thinking about the girl. Who was she? Why was she haunting the airport? When I finally arrived in Paris, I hoped I had left her behind. But sometimes late at night, I still hear that whisper, "Come play with me," echoing in my mind.
Man, I would like to know why was she attached to her and not nobody else. Unless that girl probably figured that she looked like a nice woman to hang out with. But I'm surprised that nobody else did not see her. And I bet you that if she went to security and told them to check the security cameras of the area that she saw this girl at, she probably won't be showing up on camera. But thank God she got on that flight and that girl did not decide to follow her there. Because I know she'll make a hectic show if she tries to say that there's a girl on this flight that keeps on following her. But thankfully that did not happen and she was able to get on her flight and get to Paris.
I'm 35, and traveling for work is second nature to me. Airports have become my second home, with their predictable routines and familiar chaos. However, one layover in O'Hare International Airport shattered any sense of normalcy I'd ever had. It was a 6-hour layover on a stormy night, and my flight from New York to San Francisco had been delayed. I was exhausted, so I found a secluded seat near gate B12, hoping to catch a quick nap. I drifted off almost instantly, the ambient noise of the airport lulling me into a light sleep. A sudden jarring announcement over the PA system startled me awake. "Attention passengers, please proceed to Terminal E for urgent boarding." Terminal E? I had never heard of Terminal E at O'Hare. Curious and half asleep, I gathered my things and followed the sparse crowd heading towards the mysterious terminal. Why hadn't I heard of Terminal E before? Was it new? We walked through a series of winding hallways, the airport's usual hustle and bustle fading into eerie silence. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting long, unsettling shadows on the walls. As we walked, the crowd began to thin out, and soon it felt like I was the only one left.
If I went to an airport and they say, everybody go to Terminal E, I'd be like, what in the world's Terminal E? I never heard of it before. And it ain't on my ticket. Makes you wonder why they want to go to that terminal. But then, of course, I'm guessing she's having a nightmare because she says she was just about ready to doze off. But I don't know yet about what's going on. So let's just keep this video going and see what happens, shall we?
My footsteps echoed ominously in the deserted passage. Was this a prank? Had I taken a wrong turn? Finally, I arrived at a set of large, heavy doors marked Terminal E. The doors creaked open, revealing a vast, dimly lit space that seemed to stretch infinitely. There were no signs, no check-in counters, just rows of empty chairs and abandoned luggage carts. A sense of dread washed over me as I stepped inside. Where was everyone? Why did it feel like a ghost town? As I ventured deeper into Terminal E, I noticed something strange. Clocks on the walls were all stopped at different times, as if time itself had ceased to function here. Suddenly, a faint melodic hum filled the air, growing louder with each step. The source of the sound seemed to be coming from an old, dusty jukebox in the corner. It played an old tune, its haunting melody echoing in the cavernous space. Who turned on the jukebox? Was someone else here? I approached the jukebox cautiously, but as soon as I reached out to touch it, the music stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. I turned around to leave, only to find the elderly janitor standing in the middle of the terminal, his eyes fixed on me. His uniform was worn and frayed, and he held a mop that dripped with what looked like blood. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice unnervingly calm. I was just trying to find the urgent boarding," I stammered, my heart racing. "There's no boarding here," he replied, his eyes never leaving mine. "Not anymore." Not anymore? What did he mean by that? I backed away slowly, the janitor's gaze following my every move. Just as I reached the doors, they slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. I was trapped. Panic set in, and I frantically searched for another exit.
Oh, crap. Don't tell me there's some sort of conspiracy thing going on and they're killing off a bunch of random passengers are taking their luggage and the janitor's there cleaning up the blood. If that person don't get out of there quick, they're going to be the next ones gone.
The janitor remained where he was, a ghostly figure in the shadows. Suddenly the lights flickered and went out, plunging Terminal E into complete darkness. I fumbled for my phone, using its weak light to navigate. The air grew colder, and I could hear whispers, indistinct and overlapping, like 100 voices speaking at once. My mind raced. Who were they? What did they want? Out of nowhere, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, shining my phone's light into the face of a young woman. She looked terrified. "We need to leave now," she whispered urgently. "Who are you? What's happening?" I asked, my voice trembling. "There's no time to explain. This place, it's not what it seems," she replied, pulling me towards a small door hidden behind a row of chairs. We burst through the door and found ourselves back in the familiar, bustling part of the airport. I turned to thank the woman, but she was gone. Disoriented, I looked around, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had I imagined it? Was Terminal E real? As I rejoined the throngs of travelers, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My flight was finally boarding, and I hurried to my gate, eager to leave O'Hare and its unsettling secrets behind. As the plane took off, I glanced out the window, my eyes scanning the dark expanse of the airport below. Would I ever understand what happened that night? Or would Terminal E remain a mystery, a dark chapter in the labyrinth of O'Hare, waiting for its next unsuspecting visitor?
Something is definitely fishy and weird going on in that Terminal E at the O'Hare Airport. I'm surprised nobody didn't investigate it privately just to not cause a total panic. But thank God a woman got that other person out of there. But where does she go? Thankfully, this person was able to get out of that nightmare fuel room of the airport and get on her flight and get out, because I wouldn't want to stay there another minute either.
I was stuck in a layover at a small, quiet airport late at night. My flight was delayed by 6 hours, and there were only a few people around. My name is Lucas, and I was traveling from Chicago to Denver for a business meeting. With so much time to kill, I decided to explore the empty terminal. As I walked past a large window, I caught a glimpse of something strange. It looked like a man staring at me from the reflection. I turned around quickly, but no one was there. I brushed it off as my tired eyes playing tricks on me and kept walking. I wandered through the terminal, passing closed shops and empty gates. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional announcement over the intercom. I tried to distract myself with my phone, but the battery was running low. I decided to find a charging station. I found one near a deserted gate. As I plugged in my phone, I saw the man again, reflected in the window. This time he was closer. I could see his pale face and dark eyes more clearly. He wore an old-fashioned suit, like something out of a 1930s movie. I spun around, but again there was no one there. Feeling a growing sense of unease, I decided to go to the restroom. As I washed my hands, I looked into the mirror and saw the man standing behind me. His eyes were dark and hollow, and he wore a menacing expression. I spun around in a panic, but the restroom was empty. My heart raced as I quickly left the restroom. I decided to find a more populated area to calm my nerves. I sat down near a group of other passengers and tried to relax. But every time I glanced at a reflective surface, a window, a polished floor, even a shiny part of a vending machine, I saw him. It was like he was following me through the reflections, always staring, never blinking. Desperate for answers, I approached a security guard and told him what I had been experiencing. He looked at me with concern and said, "You're not the first person to mention seeing a man like that." Years ago, a businessman was murdered here. Some say his spirit never left. My skin crawled at the thought. I tried to stay calm and rationalize it as just a spooky story. But as I sat back down, I couldn't help but notice my reflection in the window. The man was there again, closer this time, his hand reaching out as if trying to grab me. I moved to another part of the terminal, but it didn't help. Every reflective surface showed the man, each time a little closer, a little clearer. I could almost hear him now, a faint whisper that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. In a final attempt to escape him, I went to a crowded coffee shop. I sat facing away from any reflective surfaces and tried to engage with other passengers. But the sense of being watched never left me. I felt his eyes on me, even if I couldn't see him directly. Finally, my flight was ready for boarding. As I sat on the plane, I looked out the window and saw the man one last time, standing on the tarmac, staring at me. His eyes were filled with a strange intensity, and for a moment, I thought I saw his lips move, forming silent words. I never figured out who or what he was, but that layover is something I'll never forget. Even now, I avoid looking into mirrors and reflective surfaces for too long, fearing I might see him again.
Okay, first of all, I thought when you go to an abandoned terminal, everything would be shut off, like no power would be flowing through there at all. But nope, the charging station was still working. So I'm glad that person was able to charge their phone up. But it'd be kind of creepy if you see somebody wearing a old suit from like 1930s just creeping on you. You know, at first I would think, oh, it's just a shady businessman and they act all creepy and crazy sometimes. But nope, you talk to security about it and turn out it's probably the ghost of a man that got killed there. That's spooky. Hopefully that guy will realize that he's not alive anymore and he should move on and not haunt the airport no more. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Creepy Diaries content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.